Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of UMass Sports Weekly. I'm your host, Casey Johnston. Great show lined up for you tonight. We're going to start it off with some very big news coming out of Amherst that just broke this past week. Derrick Gordon of the men's basketball team becoming the first active Division I college athlete to come out of the closet. Very big news there. There's been media all over the campus, and we'll be sure to touch on it ourselves as well as show you a package. Very exclusive stuff. We were on the scene before anyone else, and we'll show you what we got from there. Follow that up. Be sure to check on the baseball team, who has found some success as of late compared to their very rough start of the season. We'll also touch on the softball team, who continues to succeed like they have been for years, and we will finish it up with checking in on the men's and women's lacrosse team. This is UMass Sports Weekly.
This is UMass Sports Weekly.
And welcome to another episode of UMass Sports Weekly. Now join me at the table to discuss the big news breaking with Derrick Gordon, Adamo, Pulzone, and Kaitlin Boyer. But first, before we get to their opinions, Adamo, Pulzone, and our very own Chris Corso were some of the first on the scene when this news broke and got plenty of coverage for it and got a little bit of video to show you right now.
Athlete has them. Derrick Gordon's difference is one of a kind and backed up by courage.
UMass basketball guard Derrick Gordon has been through a lot in his life. His twin brother was accused of attempted murder. He's lived in Plainfield, New Jersey, where drugs and violence rampage the city. But today, he fought one of his biggest demons yet. Today he announced he was the first Division I basketball player ever in history to be openly gay.
I guess this is a big deal. I'm the first openly Division I basketball player, so my teammates, they've been supporting me throughout all this. And I'm just, honestly, I'm blessed to have this support team as far as my teammates and coaches to be able to accept who I am and still treat me no different. So
it's actually a great conversation. I think DG, as we call him, was a little nervous at first, as any kid would be, telling their coach about a decision that is something that's a life decision for him. And I basically explained to him, you can tell me anything. We've been together for a long time. We have a great relationship, and you just said, "Hey, coach, I'm gay."
I mean, I hope he can, just hang out with us. I mean, that's what we've all wanted. We've always texted him and stuff like that. And now that he's comfortable and he's not in that phase where he feels like he has to hide, I feel like he can come out and hang out with the squad.
Now that he's come out, one of the major questions is how will he deal with the criticism and abuse of fans next season?
Number one, I think he feels so strong in himself right now that will help him. His teammates having his back will help him. His coach having his back will help him. And the fact that he's accepted by his family.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine what the opposite team's fans are going to say. I mean, they always say hurtful things and stuff. So, I mean, I think it's something that we're obviously going to expect. But I think it's going to make us, mad and really play together and kind of set a fire underneath us.
Gordon turned to other athletes who have recently come out this year for support, such as NFL draft prospect Michael Sam and Brooklyn Nets center Jason Collins.
Seeing him in the NBA definitely gives me a lot more confidence that just goes to show that no matter what your sexual orientation is, you can play at the next level.
Well, I'll tell you what, he explained that he feels like he can fly now. So I'm looking forward to seeing that on the floor when we start working out. But you can't tell that there's been a weight lifted off his shoulders, that his demeanor is much happier and much more lively. Adamo Pulzone, UMass Sports Weekly.
Beautiful stuff there, Adamo. Really appreciate that. Also credit Chris Corso
also
helping you out there. Great stand-up. A lot of good information coming. First thing I want to get you guys' opinions on it. I saw you touch on it a little bit in the package. It's when it comes to the crowds next year. Now, like you said, we've seen Jason Collins come out. He's at the professional level, playing at the professional level. A little different arena there. Michael Sam coming out. He graduated, so he was already done with college. He will most likely be playing in the NFL. So he won't have experienced being out and being in college either. So Derrick Gordon is going to be the first person in history to be out of the closet as a male in Division I sports, playing a full entire season. Everyone knows it right now. He's coming into a full year next year. So we know the professional crowds can be different. Don't get me wrong. We see some really immature stuff at professional games, but it's definitely more of a presence at college games. You got your college students that are going to be in there, and that ranges from kids that are 18 years old, just getting to campus, really excited. A lot of places, alcohol served. Mullen Center is one of them, but there'll be plenty of cases that there's going to be drunk college kids from alcohol supplied right in the arena. So you're going to get much more rowdier crowds. They're definitely going to be hostile. The hope is, with human nature, that people would definitely respect this kid as coming out and not being so hostile to him. But being that it is a college arena, what kind of reactions do you think we're going to see from crowds around this, not just the A10, but really nationally?
Well, first off, here at the Mullen Center, I think he's going to be fine. As you can see, this isn't really news here on campus, so he's going to be fine here. He's got a lot of support. As far as traveling out, he's a very tough kid, mentally and physically, but mentally he's very tough. He's been hiding this for 22 years of his life, so I don't think this is a problem. I mean, this is the UMass men's basketball team. They've been in the NCAA tournament this year for the first time in 15 years, so they're now like a contender. So they're already even if this news didn't come out, they were already expecting a lot of chanting. But now with this news coming out, yeah, they're expecting it. But I think if anything, this team is like a family, so they're going to use this as a fire under them, and it's really going to motivate them going forward.
Now, Kaitlin, we know Gordon is strong, obviously, being the first to come out in college, being very in the public eye and accepting this role. And now he knows what he's going up against next year. Do you think people in these other schools are going to give him a little more leeway? Or do you think we're going to see some really nasty stuff that is going to make people more afraid to come out now in college, because we could see some really hostile crowds?
I feel like it could really go both ways. I think on one hand, you see Jason Collins, you see Michael Sam. Obviously, they influence Derrick Gordon to want to come out and to want to be himself, and especially who wants to, hide that from the world. So I think that on one hand, people are very supportive of it. But on the other hand, United States of America, everyone has different views down south, out west, Midwest. So I think that at some of these schools, we are going to have, drunk kids, even sober people saying stuff that, against him and not in support of him. But it's also one of those things that, when you're playing a game and when you're in the game, half the time, I think you just learn to block that out, especially at the collegiate level. You're so focused on what you have to do, and you're there to play. You're not there to discuss personal matters. And I think a lot of people are asking, why is this a story? Doesn't matter. And I do agree, his sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's for the love of the game. But I think that as a lot of people have been looking at the features that were done on him, it's a story now because no one else in the NCAA in any other sport is openly gay. And I think that what he also mentioned in the press conference was that, he was waiting, someone else is going to come out, then I could come out, and he was like, I realized that wasn't happening. So he's an inspiration to not only people in sports, but also in everyday life.
And one more thing, when he was asked this question at the press conference, he immediately didn't even take a second to think about it. He says, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. He's focused on himself right now. And without this distraction in his head, this is one less distraction. So he's going to put it all on the court this year. I think he's going to go up 12 points a game instead of 9 in the upcoming season.
That brings me to my very next question. Now, before he transferred here at Western Kentucky, he was very, very successful, leading the team in points and rebounds as a guard. Really impressive numbers for a very solid program. Western Kentucky, absolutely no slouch. We saw some good numbers out of him this year, but a little under what we were expecting. They had some high hopes for him. I think you're seeing him a lot more, like that weight is lifted. That
mask is off.
Exactly. And it's a lot heavier weight than most people deal with. This is something he's been dealing with his whole life, So with this next season coming up, what kind of performance could we expect from Derrick Gordon?
Well, he's not going to be the leader of the team because, this whole team, there's no Chaz Williams anymore. So this is going to go between Asho, Trey Davis, Derrick Gordon. But I don't think he's going to miss as many free throws. He's gonna practice a lot, and he doesn't have that distraction in his head, like I said. So he's going to focus on himself, and now he's got a clear mind for the first time in his life. So I think it's going to be very exciting to watch him play this season. So I think he's going to be fantastic. He's definitely going to up his points per game without a doubt. Maybe even his assists. He'll be fantastic. I don't think this is going to be a decline in his career at all.
No, I think we should definitely see some improvements out of him. Now, a little surprising to me when we saw this was thinking that, definitely it's impressive he's doing this, but what kind of surprised me is that Jason Collins is still really the only one out in professional sports right now. So the second person in the national public eye in athletics was a college kid. So really, there's still plenty of people in professional leagues right now that are still in the closet. So, Kaitlin, I want to pose this to you. Do you think a professional person seeing a college kid having the courage to come out in the public eye, do you think that's going to influence a lot more professional players? And I'm talking about like near future, we're going to start seeing more people come out at the professional level.
Yeah, Casey, I certainly think it's going to kind of have a domino effect. I think that anyone that hasn't come out yet and they're seeing more and more people come out, they're going to say, look at Jason Collins. Look, he did it. He's still successful. Look at Derrick Gordon. He's doing it. He's still on the team. It doesn't change anything. I mean, obviously, we're talking about all these different aspects. The future is unknown, but I do think that we're going to see more and more people coming out. And, 10, 20 years, this is not going to be a story because people are going to be, more accepting of it if they're already not. So
I say 3 to 5 years. I don't think it's going to take 10 to 20. This is really when you look at it, this news it was news for a day, maybe 2 days. So
and then really it was only news because the media was making it news. A lot of the reaction which you saw was just, all right, cool.
Still the same person.
Cool. But it's some good stuff. We know we are very proud of Derrick Gordon here. You have personal relationship yourself with him. You know him
great kid.
A little better than we all do, so I'm sure you're very happy for him as well. And of course, Amherst is standing behind him and will be standing behind him, especially tomorrow when they march to show their support. Guys, appreciate it. Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to discuss UMass baseball. Welcome back to UMass Sports Weekly. Now joining me at the table to discuss UMass baseball, Chris Corso and Chris Podymaitis. Chris and Chris at the dish. Say that 6 times fast. Guys,
that's right.
The baseball team off to a relatively terrible start to the season, but really have turned it around as of late, winning 4 out of their last 5, and against some pretty solid programs as well. We've been talking about as the season goes on, moving into home games, moving into conference play. We're going to start seeing some more success, and we have seen it. So, Chris, to my closest, why don't you start us off recapping some of these recent wins?
Well, of course, you said 4 out of the last 5 for the baseball team, and that's after an awful start. And Coach Stone, the day that they won that first game out of the 4 out of 5, Kyle Addy actually had a game-winning hit, the junior outfielder and leadoff hitter for UMass, had a game-winning hit over Dayton, walk-off win at home, and they won the game 5-4 back on April 7th. And I talked to Coach after that game, and he told me that maybe that this would give them some confidence, a walk-off win, a celebration at the end of a game when nothing was really going right for this team. And after that game, he told me that he thought his team had some confidence going forward, and that's exactly what they've done. They've won 4 out of 5 counting that game, only lost the 1 game to St. Louis this week. St. Louis began the series in first place in the A-10, and UMass actually took 2 out of 3 against them, which was great to see. And Coach thinks the reason for this is executing late in games, and the bats are really coming alive. They outscored their opponents 16-8 in the past 4 games, which is something you didn't see too often at the beginning of the season. Bats are coming alive. Freshman Mike Gianellis is still a surprise in the middle of the lineup for them, hitting around 300 for the team. And then you got the seniors of Dylan Began and Nick Campero really stepping up in the middle of the lineup, providing some power. And with good pitching and executing late in games, that's what's getting it done for them as of late.
Yeah, Gianellis also really helping out on the pitching side of things as well. The offense really producing in this St. Louis series. Really impressive for them. 5-run inning in one of the games. They've been struggling to score 3 runs in entire games this whole year.
3 runs in 5 games straight.
Yeah, so to see them put up big numbers like that against a really solid team like St. Louis, 7-1 entering the series, taking 2 out of 3 from the top team, very impressive. Who have been some of the standouts on this team, Chris?
Well, you mentioned Mike Gianellis. He's currently batting 300 and has a 3.79 ERA. So I mean, if you just look at a guy like that, I mean, he's going to get done offensively. He's getting it done pitching. I mean, you need both of those to win games. So that's been very impressive. Nick Campero batting 281 and Dylan Began batting 279. These guys have been very much at the top of the order, and they've been producing runs. You look at the past couple of games, they've scored 5 runs, 7 runs. So they're starting to get the offense going a little bit, which is key. Earlier in the year, they just weren't scoring, and it doesn't matter how good your pitching is. If you're not scoring, you're not going to have a chance. But on the flip side of things, the pitching has really been the story. They haven't allowed more than 4 runs in their last 5 games. The last loss that they had to make it to cut their 4-game losing streak, it was a 2-1 loss in extras. So, and that's just a matter of the offense not being able to get through. But Brandon Walsh has been stellar in his last 2 starts, 7 innings pitched, 3 runs, 1 earned to start off the winning streak, and then in the last game against St. Louis, 9 innings pitched, 1 earned run. So I mean, you really can't ask for any more than that. And Walsh also is pretty effective in the batting order as well. So great pitching, timely hitting in UMass baseball, starting to get off to a better start in A10 play.
Yeah, they've been very efficient as of late. Dylan Began in studio just a couple weeks ago really foresaw this. He was saying once they entered this conference playing at home, he thought the offense would step up. He thought a turnaround was coming for his team. And so far, we have seen it. Now, as the season continues and heads towards the end here, we're going to continue seeing some A10 play. They're going to start traveling a little more. That home stretch they had is coming to an end.
Yep.
Travel will start. So, Chris, closest again, what do you see for this team as the season here in the final stretch?
Well, talking to Coach Stone yesterday, he told me that the team is going to take it one game at a time. I asked him who the starting pitcher was for the next game, and he said, I don't know yet. The game was today, got rained out, but he said, he joked with me, he laughed, and he said, one day at a time, that's the way we're taking it. They're not looking ahead, they're not looking forward. They're going to look day by day. He's going to pick the starting pitcher each day. He didn't even have an answer for me yesterday, so he's happy with the way the team's playing as of late, and one day at a time is the motto for the team as of now, and I think it's a great way to look at it, especially when you struggled with your non-conference schedule. And now you're heading into the schedule that really matters. You're in the 8th spot now in the A10, which is just making the tournament. So if you can hang around there, play 500 ball through the next 3 series remaining in the A10, which I think this team is capable of doing, then you'll end up with a chance to get a game or a series in the tournament. So I think one game at a time is a great way to look at it for Coach Stone. He's a veteran coach now for 28 years, and he doesn't have much to work with talent-wise because he doesn't get the recruiting money that the schools down south do. So he's looking to scrap across a couple wins in A10 play, and I think that this team, with the hot streak they're on now, that they can do it.
Stone definitely keeping his pitchers on their toes as well, going
That's
day
right.
by day like that, keeping everyone ready. Maybe a good mental state for the team to be in. Everyone's ready at their top level going into the game, not knowing if you're going to be pitching, starting, sitting on the bench. Interesting approach there. Chris, on the far, as we continue now with the rest of the season and conference play, do you think we're going to see the same type of success where 4 out of 5 wins in these games and maybe give them a chance moving up in the A10, making the playoffs and making a move in postseason?
I think we can. If you look at the A10 standings, there's certainly a few teams at the top that are certainly just clearly they're just better than everyone else. But there's a lot of cluster right now in the middle of the A10 standings. UMass currently 5-7. They're only a few wins away from the 4th, 5th, 6th spots. And they enter a 3-game stretch against GW starting in a couple days. And GW is 4-7, so you look there. They can only help themselves and distance themselves from the teams below them, get conference wins, and just try to keep on climbing up the standings. Obviously, they had a rough start. They started at the bottom, but now they went 4 out of 5. The team's feeling good, and they have a winnable series at GW coming up. So I think it's looking up for UMass baseball. If they keep playing well and the pitching keeps performing well, I think they have a chance.
Yeah, Chris, they started at the bottom, and now they're here winning 4 out of 5.
I knew that was coming.
Pretty impressive. I had to hit it with that, Well, guys, hopefully we see the success continue for them that they have had as of late. Now we'll be keeping a close eye as the season comes to an end, and stay tuned. We'll be right back to talk UMass softball. Welcome back to UMass Sports Weekly. Now joining me at the table to discuss UMass softball, Demi, Foley, and Marc Jean-Louis. Guys, welcome to the table. Let's get right to it. Now, we just came off the baseball segment, seeing the positive stuff from the baseball team. Won 4 out of their last 5, seeing some of the same stuff from the softball team, have won 7 of their last 8, really turned around a rough start of the season, just like the baseball team. Very similar seasons going between both these teams. Marc, I'm going to start it with you. how has the softball team got to this point, that rough start to the season, now winning 7 of the last 8?
I think what's important to realize here is that you look at this past weekend against St. Bonaventure, they scored 27 runs in 12 innings. And just thinking about that, that's just an amazing statistic and amazing accomplishment for this UMass softball team, especially considering for the month of March, it seemingly looked as if they couldn't score 27 runs the entire month. But let me tell you something about this team right here. They are one of the most battle-tested teams that I've seen at UMass in recent history. I talked with the coach, Christy Stepanoni, the other day, and she's been telling me that, this team has been working on just the everyday fundamentals of hitting, trying to move base runners along in base running situations. And I also spoke with Caroline Raymond over the weekend after their doubleheader win against St. Bonaventure, and she gives a lot of credit to her players being able to score runs for her. So it's a lot easier for a pitcher, when you have that run support behind you instead of always having to try and struggle to battle back, and it really gives you the upper hand moving forward.
So that's been kind of a common thing we've seen with the softball team, even in past years, that the pitching's there and we see solid pitcher performances, but the offensive production just isn't quite there. Mm-hmm. So we're starting to see that now with this team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at one point in the season, UMass softball was 3-14 with a batting average of .235, and now we've seen them rise up to .281, and now they're 10-15, like you said, 7-1 in the last 8 games, and a big part of that is Bridget Lee Meyer. She has really been the offensive catalyst these last couple of games, hitting close to 600 in last week's games with I think she had 3 home runs against the first game in St. Bonaventure and another home run in game 2 of that doubleheader. So definitely she has been picking up the offense for this team.
Demi, what do you think? What has turned this team around so far this season?
I just think something that we need to look at is the start to the season and how similar it was to the baseball team, and take into account just the schedule and the inclement weather that they faced. A lot of games were canceled. Both teams weren't really on the field that much, and as soon as spring really fully kicked in, baseball, we saw a different aura of them on the field, and the same thing happened with softball. So I definitely think their schedule and the weather played a huge role. Marc went into just a lot of logistics of what we've seen out of this team, and we've seen a lot of consistency lately. They're progressively getting better, and the coaches say, they're working on the basics. They're going back to the basics and the fundamentals to improve their game, which makes 100% sense. And I feel like if they're on a path, or if they continue like this, we're only going to continue to see more exponential progress.
Now, as the season continues on here, it's a similar situation to the baseball team. Are they going to be able to keep up a pace of winning 7 out of 8, or even winning over 500? Because as we saw, they were well below 500, as you mentioned, 3-14 to start the year. So now that they're experiencing the success, looking at their schedule that's coming up, knowing there's a little bit weather in the future for them, more home games as well, a lot of positive stuff in the future for them. Mm-hmm. Do you think they can continue this kind of pace as we look toward the rest of the season?
I mean, definitely. As I was saying earlier, this is the definition of a battle-tested team right here. They've suffered through 10 cancellations and 2 games postponed this season. So that's already 12 games that they're missing right there. They're supposed to be playing tomorrow against Boston University, but again, that game has been postponed due to the weather. But looking forward for the rest of the season, they've got, I think, only maybe 1 game left on the roads, and they have not lost a home game yet this season. So definitely, just looking at the schedule, all those games at home, that definitely plays in their favor. Heading into this matchup against LaSalle University, LaSalle, they have 3 players that bat over 300, but as a team, they're only hitting 255. So that's not exactly what I'm worried about. What I'm interested in seeing, though, is looking at their pitcher. She's 8-7. Yeah, exactly, 500 winning percentage, but what's really interesting about her is that she has 65 strikeouts as opposed to 16 walks. And matchup against Caroline Raymond, that's definitely going to be a low-scoring matchup that I'm really interested to see. UMass, again, battle-tested team, so I definitely think that just the struggles that they have went through this season plays in their favor.
So we know that the skill is there. We know they have the potential. The weather's getting better. We know the home games are going to start coming into play a little more, and them being a little more comfortable playing. Do you think that they can continue this pace and maybe see some postseason action for them in the A10?
Yeah, I definitely foresee there being a chance for some postseason action. They're in a position where they have a nice steady pace of consistent wins. They're not up and down in terms of getting blown out and then blowing another team out. They're very consistent. Their play is progressively getting better and staying on a competitive par. So I do foresee them being able to take this into the postseason for sure. And just like Marc said, we have a strong team, we have some depth, we have great pitching, and so coming into the LaSalle game, it might be a low scoring game, but I think we can come out on top and continue that on into the rest of the season.
Well, just like the men over on the baseball field, we hope the women continue with this recent found success after tough starts to the season, And as the season finishes out, hopefully these teams will be making some postseason play and maybe make a run at A-10 title. Who knows? Nice underdog story. We will be keeping an eye on them for sure, guys. Thanks for your stuff. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to finish up with UMass Lacrosse. Welcome back to UMass Sports Weekly. Now, joining me at the table to discuss UMass Lacrosse, to my left, Jake Liberty, and to my further left, JMS, Jesse Mayfield Sheehan. You guys have, I think you guys have become a little friendly. I don't know if I'm calling it a matchup anymore. So we're gonna keep this one nice. We're also gonna keep it brief because we're a little short on time and a little short on oxygen in this studio. Started off with the men's, ranked 17 currently, been having a very successful season, jumping all around the rankings. 17, one of the lowest they've been, which is an impressive thing to say. Jake, why don't you give us a little recap? We had the hiatus last week, didn't get to cover their season. Why don't you give us a little recap of the past couple weeks of the UMass team?
So last week they played Towson, and it wasn't the game we were looking for. Close loss, but still a loss either way. They lost 6-5. However, it was our defense that really propelled the team and held our own, as well as the last game against Drexel. Our defense has been performing unbelievable all season. Oliveri had 13 saves in that game, as well as at Drexel. You're looking at the offense, and you're just not seeing the production that you want to see. It makes me nervous because the past few seasons they've had really good starts, just like this season, and now we're slowly losing it. And like I said earlier, you can't get fat, can't get lazy, and that it's making me nervous. They were number 11 at the time. Going to Drexel, they dropped down to 14, and now they're at 17. So Towson, not a great game. However, they're a pretty good team. They were 8-3 at the time. So I think we held our own, but still not the game we're looking for. Then this past weekend, we played Drexel. That was a 13-9 loss, and that was just it was pretty heartbreaking because it was supposed to be a very good matchup, and they basically took away the game from us the entire time. We didn't lead once, and Drexel ended up leading at 8-7. We cut down the difference by 1. Again, Oliveri had 13 saves. The team defense was doing great, but the offense wasn't pushing it. Defenses were matched up well. Drexel just had that better offense, and ended up pulling it away in the fourth with 5 goals to make it 13-9. So,
well, we're seeing from those numbers. We're seeing a really solid season, Oliveri. To have saves in the teens every game is very impressive stuff. Never mind double digits. But you said you thought the defenses were equal a little bit. Now, what kind of shot production? You said UMass's offense is struggling. Mm-hmm. How did the shot production differ? Because it seems like 13 goals and 13 saves. That's 26 shots. That's a lot of shots. It seems like the defense may have been slacking a bit. Is the offense production just really not matching the offenses of these other teams, or is our defense actually slacking off a little bit?
Well, against Towson, we actually outshot both the teams. I believe Drexel was 36-33, and then Towson was maybe 28-24. So we're outshooting them, but we're not getting enough, passing, enough assist going on. We're just kind of, taking risky shots, and we need to work on accuracy, better movement around the net. I think the defense is staying strong, but the offense, like I just said, they're not. Progressing, efficient enough. Exactly.
So Jake, I don't want to get you nervous, man, but it sounds like this offense is doing quite a bit of eating, quite a bit of sitting down, getting a little fat, getting a little lazy. Falling down in these rankings. That's not what we like to see. You've seen this happening all year. This little drop-offs, minor drop-offs happening with this team. It continues to happen. It's going to really peak at its lowest as we go into the postseason. Could be really bad for this team. Keep an eye on these guys. Go whip them into shape a little bit. We don't want fat and lazy lacrosse players out here at UMass. 17 for the men. JMS, what kind of stuff are we seeing from the women?
Well, currently the men and women are sitting at number 10 in the nation. And, the past few games over the past couple of weeks, let me just run down some scores for you. 19-10, 18-2, 20-6, and most recently on Sunday, 22-2 against conference newcomer George Mason.
Welcome to the conference.
Yes, seriously. I'll tell you, I was at that game against George Mason, and in the first half, the Minute Women scored 17 goals. The score at halftime was 17-1.
Wow.
And when you see a score like that, the Minute Women were scoring about every minute. It was just completely merciless.
No pun intended?
in that first half. What?
No pun intended. The minute women scoring every minute.
In some runs, they were scoring every minute. But yeah, it just shows. I mean, we've been saying this all season. This is UMass's conference to lose. I mean, you take a look at the footage here. They're just absolutely dominant here in this game against George Mason. No letting up, scoring non-stop against them. And like we've been saying, this is their conference. They own the A10 right now. They've been owning it for quite a few years now. And they're just showing that to these newcomers in George Mason. They were showing it to their past few opponents in LaSalle, St. Joseph's, and George Washington. And honestly, it's tough to see some real competition for them. I think their last game against Duquesne could be a little tough. Duquesne's been having a pretty good season. They're undefeated so far. I believe they're still undefeated, and they've been ranking pretty high in the standings. But aside from that, it's hard to see some real competition for UMass. Although games like this, you do get to see some players step up off the bench, which is good to see. It's good to see that, for these players to get experience considering all the top players that are going to be graduating at the end of this year.
Now, in games like we saw there where it's 22-2, just an absolutely insane score, you mentioned it's good to see some players come off the bench. When they're having so much efficiency, scoring 22 goals, allowing just 2, is this a situation where their starters are out there, they're leaving the Sam Rush and Katie Ferris out there, go score as many goals as you want, or is this a second unit coming on and putting in just as good as a performance as this first unit?
Well, for most of the first half, it was really leaving a lot of the first unit out there. Sam Rush finished with 5 goals in that game. Katie Ferris finished with 3 goals and 3 assists. So they both had fantastic games. And, it was the senior day game, so naturally they were going to leave that first tier out for as long as they possibly could. But, by halftime, there's a certain point where you have to draw a line. Yeah. And they drew it. They let some of their, less experienced players come in. And, we've seen some of the, younger players really stepping up this season already. I think Erica Ipe, who's just a sophomore, has already become an established part of the offense. Hannah Murphy, who's just a freshman, has already become like almost a secondary draw specialist for the team. So you see players like that already stepping up. And then you get games like this where the rest of the backups get plenty of experience. It shows some promise for next year.
So second unit beating George Mason 5-1 in the second half, letting them know they may be new to the conference, not going to get any easier as these years go on. This UMass team, very solid. As you said, their conference to lose. We'll continue to keep an eye on them as the season closes up. Before I close off this segment, close up the show, guys, Bruins, Red Wings kicking off Friday night, playoffs. Love it. What's going to go down this series? We know Zetterberg and Datsuk have been on the fence a little bit. They'll be back. Jake, what's going to happen?
Well, what I'm hoping for, obviously a 4-0. But I'm looking at a Game 5 situation. Bruins take it.
Ooh, okay.
Realistically, probably about 6 games. Bruins still take it, but I think we played them 4 times in the regular season, and they beat us 3 of those 4. They actually spanked us one game, 6-1. And so, we can't be letting that up. However, like I said, the playoff hockey is much different from the regular season.
It's true.
Last year, the Red Wings played the Blackhawks in the first round, and Blackhawks ended up beating them in overtime in Game 7 after the Red Wings led the series 3-1. So, do they choke? They have the longest active NHL playoff streak. This is now 23 seasons in a row that they're making the playoffs.
Impressive.
But, do they choke? I guess we'll have to see again.
Yeah, Red Wings, not a worthy 8 seed, much better team than that. JMS, I know Bruins are your team. Who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Bruins. I'm going to go with a bit of a bold statement here and say they'll take it in 7 games.
Ooh, okay.
I believe playoff hockey, it's all about having a hot goalie. And right now, you look at how the 2 starting goalies these 2 teams have been doing this month. Red Wings starting goalie, Jimmy Howard, he's been doing much better. Got a better save percentage than Tuukka Rask over this last month. Like Jake said, Red Wings have the better record over the season. And like you addressed, Red Wings do have some players coming back from injuries. So I think a little bit of the momentum is swinging in the favor of the Red Wings. But I think the Bruins are just so well-rounded this year that even with the momentum that is so important in playoff hockey, even with that swinging a little bit towards the Red Wings' way, I think the Bruins are just way too talented this year to lose the series. I say they take it in 7.
Beautiful, JMS. I love it. I love it. Original 6, first-round playoff, 7-game series. Hey, you can't beat that when it comes to the NHL. Beautiful stuff, guys. I appreciate it there. And we thank you at home for watching. As always, make sure to check us out on Facebook at UMass Sports Weekly. Give us a like. There you can check out full episodes and segments. Also, be sure to like us on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Weekly, your number one for UMass athletics coverage. For the rest of the UMass Sports Weekly team, I'm Casey Johnston, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place.